Since we can never get enough of Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura games, one more from their Speed Chess Championship final, and what a game it is. I mean, we have already looked at the dramatic final encounter between these two, but if that dramatic game would not have been played, this game would have definitely been the best game or the most exciting game of their match, because in this game, it's a very short game, a lot of interesting and instructive moments for us to learn from. So make sure to subscribe to the channel if you would like to see more of these fantastic attacking games. I mean, over the last couple of weeks we have found so many fantastic short attacking games, and also this game includes to that list. So let's have a look. Magnus is playing with the white pieces in this game. It's the 3+1 section. So quite a lot of time. It's not like a bullet game, it's a blitz game, so plenty of time to think. And it's remarkable that things are going the way they go. So Magnus goes d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, b6. It's the Queen's Indian. It's a really fighting opening, was popular already 40-50 years ago, and still it's quite of the most challenging moves to get a interesting battle. G3, the fianchetto system. So both bishops are opposing each other on the long diagonal. Bishop b4 check. And after bishop d2, black goes for the solid line to trade off the dark squared bishops. Castling kingside, knight c3. And this is an interesting moment because with a knight on c3, white is planning to play at some point d5 to grab more space in the center and to lock up that bishop on b7. So the thematical response here is to aim for simplifications as black. With the move knight e4, if white captures, the bishop will recapture, and the bishop will be nicely placed on e4. White cannot really count on a serious advantage here, but the next move is leading to interesting play. Queen d3. So you're attacking the knight on e4 with both your knight and queen. Knight takes c3 is played. Now you think, okay, white is wasting time. He will probably just take back either with the queen or with the b pawn. But okay, wasting your pawn structure is not something you would like to do as white. But Magnus goes for this move, knight g5. This is a well-known opening idea, and it's not even a real trap, but you have to be very careful, because if you take the bishop on g2, it's queen takes h7 with checkmate. So here we see that the diagonal for the bishop is open, white is threatening checkmate, and also you don't want to take that knight on g5 because it allows bishop takes b7, after which the rook on a8 will be taken next. So after knight g5, knight e4 is the way to give back your knight. I mean, you're going to lose material anyway, but you were a piece up, so you can just give it back. That's not a problem at all. Knight takes e4, and still material's even, but there are threats of playing knight f6, followed by bishop takes b7, after which the rook is caught in the corner. So black plays knight c6 to close this diagonal, to develop a piece to c6. That's a reasonable move. Castling kingside, and black goes for the move f5, grabbing space, kicking the knight away from e4. Knight goes back to c3, and still looks as if white is rock solid here with his bishop on g2. Doesn't seem as if much can be happening very soon. But wait, guys, Hikaru has a different idea in mind. Plays here the move f4. That's a very ambitious move, as he is really intending to launch a kingside attack to open the f-file so that the rook can join the attack. But most importantly, he wants to weaken white's kingside structure. And of course, if you take that pawn, that's a really bad move, was not played in the game. But one of the ideas is now that after something like e3, the rook can come to g4. And look, this bishop is in trouble, as black is setting up some devastating threats against that bishop on g2. Anyway, that didn't happen, of course, and white is supposed here not to react at all. Just drop back with the queen to d2 to keep an eye on that pawn on f4. But black plays queen f6. Excellent move. So the queen joins play, supports the pawn. And of course also the queen and knight are looking at the pawn on d4, even though that pawn cannot really be taken yet, as the bishop on b7 is hanging once the knight moves. So anyway, white played rook 81, and black thought, let's play knight a5. That's a possibility, offering the exchange of bishops. And there are various ways of responding. Bishop takes b7 was played, so bishops were exchanged right away. But if you go back, also a move like b3 comes into consideration, because you're supporting your pawn on c4. And well, if black is going to exchange now, you don't have to be afraid of the move f3. That's what I want to show you, because it looks very dangerous, as after taking and the queen takes on f3, queen looks very impressive, but the other pieces are still far away, and white has plans of kicking the queen out with moves like rook e1 to e3, or maybe even the other rook, so that the rook stays on f1. Anyway, black is not having a dangerous attack. Position is roughly balanced in this case still. But bishop takes on b7, knight takes, and here this pawn on f4, it's kind of annoying. I mean, you want to have some clarity as white, and therefore Magnus played e3. But this is a serious concession, I would say, and Hikaru grabs the opportunity to advance the pawn to f3. Of course, he could have taken either on e3 or g3, but with the pawn on f3, you have more attacking potential against the white king. The only thing black needs to do now is bring a queen to h3, and it will be checkmate on h2. So the simple threat is queen f5, queen to h3. White plays e4 to prevent the queen from coming to f5. Pawn covers that f5 square. Queen g6. So the queen is finding an alternative way to approach the h3 square. And the question is how to respond. Magnus played h4 so that he can always bring the king to h2 if he has to. But perhaps rook fe1 is interesting as well. This is also a very important defensive technique. You cannot really run away with your king, but what you can do is always put the queen on d3, so that in case the queen comes to h3, you're back with your queen to f1 and you cover the mating square. So I thought that's a more flexible move. h4 is another pawn move in front of your king. I'm not sure that's something you really want to see. Now knight d6 was played, and that is a double attack on these two pawns. And well, very understandable. Magnus doesn't want to give away any of these pawns, even though the ancient says that, well, you better give up the pawn on e4. You're protecting the pawn on c4. If you take, okay, black is a pawn up and the game continues. But after queen d3, now there is this move, rook to f4. Very nice move. The rook, of course, cannot be taken because of the pin along the g-file. And also, you can never really go king h2, because it does allow rook takes h4 with check, and after taking, it's going to be checkmate on g2. So you can't do that. Rook fe1 was played, overprotecting the pawn on e4. Now if you take the pawn on h4, it doesn't come with check, and white has the chance to take the pawn on f3. That pawn on f3 is black's main attacking weapon, so he's not interested in making that exchange. Instead, rook af8 is played, and that's an excellent move, because you're overprotecting the pawn on f3. Now rook takes h4 is a serious idea, so therefore rook e3 is played, with the idea to meet rook takes h4 with rook takes f3. And once the pawn on f3 is gone, all the mating threats evaporate. So after rook e3, guys, looks as if Magnus has just managed to keep everything under control. There are no immediate threats. Pawn on h4 cannot be taken. If needed, the queen can come back to f1. But Hikaru plays an absolute brilliant move, and I hope you can find it now. You should understand that these two pieces, they are defensive. They are defending white's position right now, but defenders, they can easily be overloaded. And with the following move, knight takes c4, black sacrifices its knight to deflect the white queen. And the main point is that if you take the knight on c4. I mean, let's have a look. You cannot really do much else. The rook is hanging, knight takes b2 with another knight fork is a threat, so you really have to take. And now there's not an immediate threat, it seems as if it's the case, but there is rook takes h4, so black continues the attack with a minus piece. I mean, white is a knight up, but the main point of that knight sacrifice is that the pawn on f3 cannot really be taken because it's still supported by the rook and the queen is not in defense. You can bring it back, the queen to d3, but now it's queen to g4, and there are a lot of threats here, including queen h3 with mate on g2 or on h3. Sorry, on h1. And if you go queen f1 to cover these threats, then you put a rook on h3. Nice subtle move with the plan of going queen h5 next. This time the queen and rook, they are reversed, and mate on h1 cannot be defended. Thanks to the pawn on f3, white cannot bring the queen to g2. So this is game over. Black is winning here. Let's go back. This is what happens after queen d3. If you play queen f1, then you would like to bring your forces to the h-file, but you better drop back first with a rook to h6, and then on the next move it will be queen h5, and it's a very identical situation with queen and rook forming a battery on the h-file, and the h1 square cannot be defended. So that's game over. In the game instead, there followed the move rook d to d3. That's a very interesting move as you're planning to eliminate the pawn on f3 at some point, or if the queen leaves the g-file, g takes h4 can be played. There are no immediate threats, it seems, but this is the moment to strike. This is the best move of the entire match, at least the most spectacular one, as there followed queen takes g3. This is the move which had been overlooked by Magnus in advance. I'm pretty sure about that. It's a queen sacrifice after which he resigned. I mean, the king can't escape. If the king goes to f1, it's rook h1 with checkmate. So you have to take the queen. But now the f-pawn comes forward, being supported by the rook on f8. King has to block the f-pawn, but now rook h1 with check, all forcing moves. King goes to e2, and now it's f1 queen. And it's a crushing mating attack. In fact, the king can only go to d2. And now the most precise way to finish the game off is queen c1 check. King has to go back to e2. And then it's queen e1 with checkmate. What a devastating attack. And we rarely see Magnus getting crushed in only 24 moves. He resigned after the move queen takes g3. Very spectacular attack with all the best pieces included. I hope you learned something from this game and you're able to build up similar attacks yourself as well. But you see, it's very important to bring all your pieces into the attack. I mean, not only the queen on g3 and the rook on h4 are important. Also, this move rook a2 f8 was very important to give the attack some extra strength. So, I thought that was very instructive by Hikaru. Thanks for watching. See you soon again.